What's going on, BG Cast fam? How's it going tonight? Thanks again for joining me for another Wednesday live podcast. It has been, you guys have heard me say this a couple times, but I'm just going to reiterate it one last time. It has been hotter than Satan's ass on a stainless steel chair in the seventh layer of hell out here in fucking Colorado, man. My goodness. So, and a lot of you are like, Steve, why the hell are you still wearing that beanie? Well, I have a wafro. All right. Like my hair is very blonde and wavy. So like I need something to keep it in check until I get a haircut this weekend. But nonetheless, here we go, guys. I have two very awesome, amazing, special human beings joining me tonight. I've gotten to know them over the past few months, and I got to say, like, I'm really excited for them to be taking the initiative and stepping forward into being podcasters of their own. They have a very, very interesting spiritual awakening story. I've gotten to hear little tidbits of it here and there, after getting to know them for a little bit. And I've also been on their shows as well. And also, they have some very interesting history with gifted programs, NDEs, and there's a really awesome theory that they have kind of been talking about and kind of been working on that I want to bring up tonight on the show. Guys, these are the newest members of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. I want to welcome to my show Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja. What's up, you two?
Hey guys. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Yeah. It's so cool to have you two on my show for a change. This has been a long time coming. And with you guys now being part of Forbidden Knowledge Network, I mean, I'm super stoked for you two. I really am, you guys, like I was even just saying in the intro, I love it when I see people take initiative and like put that foot forward and try to like assist the collective in the way that you two are doing right now, man. It's something special. So let's get into it, guys. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves? I know you two have both had very interesting awakening stories. So let's dive right in.
Do you want me to I'll go first because I was the first one. So I did always suspect there was something off because I didn't fit in. I didn't like my family pretended that they liked me. I suspected that, and then I got absolute confirmation after my father died. But anyway, I started rubbing my eyes. It was actually my ex, my son's father, that ironically kind of started kicking things off with The Secret. Now, The Secret, it's helpful and all that, and it's great. It is a great first step, and I find like a lot of people, that's what started it. And so then after that, I figured that there was something more. And so then I found out about Abraham Hicks. That is a group of non-physical beings that comes under one name, channeled by Esther Hicks. And that was very helpful, but I knew that there was more. And so like I have a really good friend that I met online in Australia, and so she was sending me a lot of different links because she saw me. She knew I was about to pop off. I was a ticking time bomb. She just didn't know when. And so she sent me some links. Initially, it was about I think it's a psyop with a certain letter. And so I did a lot of digging with that. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of good information here, but something still feels off. And so I learned a lot. It was crazy. And so then I started on my deep dive of podcasts. And
very cool.
Yeah. And I just was not happy with the answers that I was getting. And even in the podcast world, I've grown from there because I've kind of found like there's a set of podcasters that are very helpful. They're on the same team, but they're still not quite there. And so that led me to keep digging, and that's actually where I found Chris Matthew, who founded the Forbidden Knowledge News Network, and that's so from there, like I've found so much information, like I was digging, like learning about, like the occult and, like all of the stuff going on in the background. But then I also, found out, about the, super space program, secret space program, whatever. And so then at that time, and that's where things come in for Don, he was having some nightmares, and I'm like, dude, you have to listen to this. I've been I've been trying to get him to listen to podcasts for months, and he would humor me if there was like an episode that stuck out, but it's, I'm like, come on, join me on my dig, and he just wouldn't do it until this happened. So just
Yeah. So before we get there, to go back for me personally, like I've always known there was something beyond, right? I believed in something larger than ourselves, and it wasn't Bible God. I knew that, right? Which pissed off a very Christian and Catholic one side of my family. That at one particular family gathering, I referred to the Bible to a elongated version of the Care Bears and was never invited back again.
Hold on. I totally resonate with you on that, man. And same thing with you, Spinja. My family doesn't like, my dad's side of the family doesn't like me either, and they're all Orthodox Christians. So I totally feel you on that, man. I totally feel you. Keep going.
Yeah. So from there, I realized, okay, if these people hate me for having an opinion, that obviously isn't where the love is coming from. So I just kind of always stayed on my own path when it came to God or whomever that was running this show. And as far as the paranormal, what I knew was, I'm damn sure me and a bunch of friends saw a UFO when we were kids, and I think ghosts are real too. So that brings my founding thoughts on like the paranormal and all of this spirituality up until like last fall. Like she was saying, I started having these horrific futuristic military style nightmares, right? Like I would die 3, 4, or 5 times in a night. Sometimes I could like wake up and remember the feel of my teeth being smashed out by a rifle or somebody's boot. And then as they got more graphic, what was happening was I was realizing they weren't people I was fighting. They were like 9 to 12 foot tall fucking orange dolphin. Like, you know the way a dolphin looks like it feels? That's what their skin looked like, but it was orange reptilians.
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh,
and
sounds like you got, yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is going on? I'm going crazy. Right? And she's like, no, you're not. Listen to this. I'm like, fuck your podcast. I don't want to listen to that. And she's like, no, like that's how into podcasts I was a year ago. Like I literally said those words, F your podcast. I don't want to hear it. And she's like, just listen. So I finally did. And I was like, oh. And I did get stuck at that secret space program niche that some people do, but then I kind of kicked out of it and I was like, well, wait a minute. If that's real, then that means that's probably real, and that's probably, and it just blew the door on my perception of reality. Like, well, then damn near anything can be possible if my consciousness can exist in a parallel or adjacent timeline where I'm performing service to the planet as a super soldier fighting reptilians, and that overlay is coming into my current consciousness, then damn near anything is possible. Right. And that was the drive for me to start my own podcast. And I was like, I have to talk to all of these people because I need to know all of the things. And that's what I've been doing since.
That is, man, I'm going to tell you what, like, you're not the first person I've heard like claim that they get taken places when they sleep. I've seen this phenomenon quite a bit, and I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head on what could potentially be going on with it. I think it's possible you have that. Either it could be potentially you could be being taken into this timeline while you sleep, or it is something that your consciousness is already aware of what you're doing. That's just very strange and bizarre. And what I find awesome too is how like the secret space program finally got you onto the podcast. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, just before we go too far, talking about being asleep is I have a particular set of somnambulistic skills that the only thing I'm not doing while I'm asleep is being awake. Okay, I can talk, I can walk, I can eat, I can reason, I can have conversations, I can get her a glass of water, I can go to the bathroom, I can do everything, but I'm not there. And I don't even sound the same. She'll talk to me and it's like, yeah. But if I'm aware that she's asked me something, I speak to her like I'm speaking to you now.
Oh wow, man. It's like, yeah. Yeah, keep going.
I actually believe that those are the times of day where my consciousness, there's a theory going around our community that our consciousness leaves our body for approximately 3 hours a night. And I think when I get caught in that window, my body goes into autopilot and can still function, where most people get that. We have a neurological function, or we're supposed to have a neurological function that basically locks us into place in sleep. I don't have that, I don't think, right? Where my vessel can get up and operate without me.
It's called hypnagogia, I think, if I'm correct. It's called hypnagogia. It's the hypnagogic state. It's where your muscles become relaxed. They almost get distoned almost, and it's very hard for you. But the fact that you don't have that is very interesting. It's very interesting to me. It's almost as if like your body's consciousness, like, because the physical vessel, if we're all like, everything is ultimately part of creation, and because that your divine subjective focal points, it's almost like the physical body almost has a little bit its own base consciousness that it can somehow still operate on and function on. Man, that's really, really bizarre. So how often do you still have these nightmares?
The nightmares pretty much subsided when I accepted the reality. Like, there's still times where I'll be sitting here and I'll look at Spin and be like, I'm only like 85, 90% here. And she's like, oh, on the ship again. And I'll see like the hallway and I'm like, it's almost like having picture in picture that doesn't come all the way in. It's like, oh, for Christ's sake. Right.
I know
Whoever
exactly what you're talking about.
But like, it's just weird. Like, I'll be getting overlay is the only way to say it.
I can totally understand that, man. I think what, because we've discussed how talented you are, and we will definitely get into that a little bit later when it comes to your, manifestation and your meditation and things like that. I think potentially too that, you could be, your frequency could be raising, and it's almost as if like there's almost like interference between television stations. If you catch what I'm saying, it's like the one big thing I like to talk about too is like, a lot of people, I used the record analogy on the show with you guys yesterday, but then there's also the television analogy. It's like a television set. Everything's already in the television. Everything's just on different channels. You just gotta change the channel to get to the next station. And what it sounds like is you're getting interference from the different frequencies.
And yeah, and that actually, she was just going to go where I was. Our son, who goes by the name on the internet as Ray, and I have both seen a entity in recent months that is me, we're assuming, because it looks like my silhouette and has my build and frame, where we will pass through or by each other in time. And our son has actually had several sleeping interactions with him where it'll be my voice in his dream waking him up, but I'm in the next room asleep as well.
So one thing I want to ask you, Don, have you heard this? So, because I heard you say in the beginning you want to learn about the paranormal. So there have been instances, check this out. I don't know if you've heard this. There's been instances of paranormal researchers in the present time going in and talking to these spirits, or what they thought were spirits, but some of these spirits said they were from the year 2084. And some of these other spirits were saying they were from the year 2102, if I'm correct. So what you're saying makes like a little bit of sense based on what I'm saying. That it is very, very potentially possible that you could be in some way, shape, or form bypassing your energy and time. That is interesting. So when did this entity start appearing?
About 2 or 3 months ago, and that was at another stage of my awakening. It was my first controlled OBE that I had in the bathtub while I was basically queuing everything I could. Like I said, my strategy at life right now is throw everything at the board and see what sticks. So I had on frequency music, I was candles, it was meditating, it was breathing, it was warm water, and I popped out exactly the way you describe it. I actually went to an amazing warm white yellow light that I can't even explain the feeling it gave me inside. And what I had been focusing on just before I popped out was I want to be at our farm. So I went to this amazing warm light that I'm going to say was source. And then all of a sudden I thundered back down to earth as fast as light could possibly move to the farm that we're trying to buy, and then woke up holding onto the side of the tub.
Whoa, man, that is interesting. That's that I'm going to tell you, you know, I definitely want to dig into your talents a little bit here real quick. So, Don, why don't you tell everybody how many NDEs you've had? I've joked with Don and I said he's like a goddamn cat. He's got nine lives at this point because he's made it out of some pickles, and I personally feel that could have a lot to do with why you are so talented but let's get into it a little bit.
I have had, I will lowball this and say 8 confirmed.
8 confirmed NDEs. You
Yes.
got 9 lives, man. You got 9 lives. You got 9 lives. You have something to do here. That is for sure.
And that also jumps into a program I'm pretty sure I'm involved in is I have a physical traumatic incident every year. Since the year I was born, I have had some type of traumatic incident every year for 46 years. I have been bitten by dogs. I have grabbed round barrel fire stoves and lost the sensation in my hand. I've had my teeth knocked out. Well, we'll get into the NDEs too, because they kind of fit in. I drowned and my buddy had to pull me out of the pool. The one that I actually got Steven to confirm was I was electrocuted for no less than 20 seconds by 920 volts, standing in wet leather work boots in a puddle while touching a recut stone saw.
Oh, 100% I can confirm that because as an electrician, anytime you add water into the situation, you will start drawing full load on that. So the fact that you walked away from that, Don, and your heart did not cook into a hamburger is definitely saying something, man.
So if we go ahead, we can actually jump back from there because before that, I had almost died in the motorcycle accident. Which was an NDE and an OBE in one. And it was actually brought back to me via a hypnosis. What happened was I was driving a very fast motorcycle and the road went from tar and chip to gravel. I don't know if everybody knows what tar and chip is, but it's that rough pavement. Yeah. And it was freshly graded gravel and the bike just started to float sideways. And I was like, oh crap. And I made the first mistake. I hit both brakes. So the bike immediately cartwheeled.
Oof.
And in the process, my left leg got stuck between the tire and the exhaust and ripped 1/8 of my calf off. So now I'm fused to the motorcycle and it goes over the first time. Now from there, I can watch from the side of the road the entire experience as I'm bouncing down the road 7 times, coming to rest back in the long grass as I bounced, like basically pogoed into the long grass. And then it kind of goes dark. And then I remember regaining consciousness and realizing I'm stuck. So I slid my helmet off, which is also a no-no, because if you ever have a motorcycle accident, don't take your helmet off because your wig could be split and you don't know. And it'll just fall apart and your shit will be everywhere. But I did it anyway because I heard a car coming on the gravel road. So I threw my helmet onto the road and I heard the most wonderful sound in my entire life, and that was the sound of stopping tires.
Yes, I can imagine that.
5 impaired natives come across mangled Donnie, and the first words out of their mouth is, "Oh man, you're pretty fucked up, eh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, is there any chance you can get me some help?" And they're like, "Yeah, we'll go get you some help, but we've been drinking, so we're not staying." I'm like, "Thank you." And they ended up getting me a biker from down the road, Daniel Lowe. If you ever watched this show, brother, I never forgot you. He had to cut my motorcycle tire off of my leg and lift the bike off of me. Well, still in shock or superhuman, who the hell knows? I stood up because I immediately went into panic mode and I wanted a cigarette. Well, this seasoned biker goes the color of Casper, and I'm like, "What?" He's like, "If you sit down, I'll give you a smoke." And I look down, and I won't get too graphic for everybody because it's gross, but my legs did no longer look right or face the right way.
I can definitely get a visual on that. Yeah.
But yeah, those are probably the 2 most memorable. But now poor Spinja also gets into my near fatalities because she took us to her family compound, which is on a private lake, and my senses not being as honed as they should be about almost dying as many times as I have, we ended up 3/4 of the lake across the lake on a floating island heading for the bay.
And I kept on saying I should get off and pull us in because he can't swim because of his leg.
Mhm.
And so it was either float away or I start swimming, and I'm never listening to him ever again. If something tells me to do it, I'm just gonna flip and do it. So that was one, and then
what was the other one?
On the way out here.
Oh yeah, we almost all died on the way out to Alberta trying to escape Ontario. So we got basically all the way across Canada in about 2.5 days. Mm-hmm. And we were just coming into Alberta, and it's like 3 a.m. and I go around this truck driver because he's kind of puttering, and he pulls over and he starts taking the whole lane. I'm like, "You dick." And I went to rev it, and this is when we see the deer explode off of the front of his truck. Oh. There was a whole herd of deer coming in from the side of the road, and he saw I was going to pass, and it would have hit our windshield and killed all of us.
My goodness, man. That's a synchronicity right there. That's a true synchronicity. And I got a visual for what you were saying too, because I remember when I was young, I was coming home from my grandmother's house one night with my mom, and we ended up hitting a deer in her vehicle. And yes, it did explode 100%. That is the best way to put it. Dude, I'm going to tell you what, man, I think after everything that you've been through, I think you've definitely figured out that you ain't going anywhere as of right now. And you got something to do here. Yeah. For sure, man. So, guys, one thing I want to touch on real quick before we hop into some other stuff too is, the gifted program thing has been kind of becoming a thing on my show. One thing I've been doing is I've been trying to put together some puzzle pieces, and you two have a very interesting, both of you, and with your son, correct too. He ended up. Oh yes. So let's kind of dive into that, because the one thing you told me before you hopped on, I think people need to know about this 100%. So let's talk about your experiences in the gifted program, and let's talk about what happened with your son in Child Protective Services, man.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, whoever wants to go first, no worries.
So with me, I managed to sidestep it. They tried. When I was in grade 3, grade 2, this just came back to me when I watched the last episode. They tried to get me to skip grade 3, and I didn't want to because I wanted to be with my friends. And then, when I was in grade 5, they tried to put me in the school that I went to was called the enrichment program. and I didn't want to participate because I was terrified of the teacher.
I
And
can
so
understand. Yeah.
my mom didn't push me. And so then, and I mean, I don't want this to sound self-centered or anything. I'm just the way it is, but it seems a little coincidental. They decided in grade 6, that's when we started playing musical instruments. And then, like, it's so weird. They decided that they were going to split the classes up. There was and they were going to put us into 2 classes. There was the fast class and the slow class, and that's what they called them. And it was related to our music ability, which makes
Okay.
absolutely no sense. Like, this
that's a little
school was
strange,
not
yeah.
an art school. Yeah. And so they put me in the fast class, and all of my friends were in the slow class. So I was in the fast class hanging out, and like it was all the popular kids and all the well-to-do kids, and then there was me. And even like in school with my friends, I always had the option, and the popular kids were always trying to draw me in, but my heart was with my friends. And so I was so upset. And so then my mom called the school, and she's like, listen, like she can't do this. Like, she's away from all her friends. So they ended up putting me back in the slow class. And then in high school, there really wasn't anything that I recall right now, but as we talk about it, it's funny. There's a lot of stuff that's coming back. The only thing there was that I signed up for a class called Introduction to Business because all of my friends did. And I went to the first class, and I'm like, this is not for me. This doesn't feel right. So then I signed up for music, and that was kind of a solo mission. I'm glad I did, but that was about it. There really wasn't any weirdness in regards to that. That was pretty much the end. Now at the end of high school, so the way at the time, the way it was structured, there was the advanced classes, which was for the kids who were going to university, and I think post-secondary is a little different here, like the terminology anyway. But the university is for like the doctors and lawyers and, you know, like those ones, right? And college is more for like the trades and like practical skills and you know, like teachers assistants and things like. And so the advanced courses were to prepare you for university. General was college, and then basic was just
job.
Yeah. And so I'd taken the advanced classes all through high school because I didn't know what I was going to do. I actually did have goals. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a music teacher. And so when I put that out there, my mom, she's like, well, there's no money for that. And unfortunately, well, no, fortunately, because it ultimately ended up saving me. She didn't know about the process about student loans or anything, because nobody in my family had been to done post-secondary. So, and she didn't know to ask these questions. I certainly don't fault her, and honestly, I think she ended up saving me, because then plan B was I wanted to get into radio broadcasting, and I wanted to be a radio DJ. And she told me that I didn't have the personality for it. And believe it or not, once upon a time, I was really shy. So, I mean, she wasn't way off in left field. But again, now knowing what we know, she ended up saving me. And so I'm like, okay, so that's not going to work out. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, but the pressure to pick something to go to post-secondary was insane. And so I'm like, all right, well, I guess I got to pick something. So I chose hairstyling. And so I went to talk to my guidance counselor. She asked me, she's like, okay, what did you decide? I'm like, oh, I'm hairstyling. And she's like, she looks at me and she's like, isn't there anything else you would rather do? And that was it. She didn't present me with any other options. She didn't encourage me to explore or anything. That was the response. And it was like, all right, you're going to deter an ambitious 17-year-old who actually picked something. Got it. So anyway, that's where that goes with the education part of things for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. It's strange how almost like it's like, you know, they were kept trying to pull you in, and it seems like you had some kind of divine protection, almost like some kind of divine guidance that was not letting you in, and it was kind of shielding you. And that, I mean, definitely that's an awesome thing too. Don, I know you had a little bit of an experience yourself though, so let's dive into that.
Yeah, mine was kind of weird, and I guess I'll go back to the beginning because, like, I never took to school the way most kids do. Like when they were trying to teach us to read, I can now remember when I would open a book, I tried to look at it like a picture and process everything at once. I did not functionally have that where I needed to read it as words because I thought I should understand everything that was on the page immediately. Like, because you learn through imagery, that's the way our minds are set. Right. And that stuck with me. So immediately they're like, oh, he's kind of slow. He can't even read, blah, blah. So I just went into being the fundamental Bart Simpson, proud of being a C student for a couple of years. Then they started with the testing. And it was kind of strange because I remember like certain kids would get taken out of the room for certain tests, and Spinja has told me quite often that the public school I went to does not sound like a public school at all. Like it seems like there was a very selected group. Like I too was they tried to insert me into the rich kids a couple of times and it just didn't take. But yeah, basically your standard being taken out of class for random tests and it's not the whole class. Eye tests at school, just weird things that don't seem normal now, right? I remember going to the library and there was like 6 other kids and we all had to listen to these noises and at the long table, and it's like, what do you mean you can still hear that? And I'm like, yeah, right here.
You did that too.
Yeah, that's not normal.
Oh, okay.
That's not normal in a school setting at all. I agree.
No. So that kind of goes ahead a bit. They asked us to do an environmental project for the science fair in grade 4. And, you know, they still think I'm the slow-witted dumb kid. And I asked my stepdad, who was a sheet metal worker and like a metal worker by trade. I was like, Dad, I know how to do something. I want to make this, but I need you to help me because you're a grown-up. And what I made was a counter-mounted tabletop can crusher that reduced cans to like 1/6 the size, so you had more room in your recycling bin, which is an ingenious concept for a grade 4, right?
I would say so. That's a very, very intricate science fair project for grade 4, for sure.
And to be able to describe the workings of it so that my grade 6 educated stepfather could build it, and then came in second at the science fair. All of a sudden, there was an interest in my academic future. Now, remember, I'm a solid C student. My sister, who's been coming up in the same school, has been straight A's since the day she walked through the door. The next year in grade 5, I was invited to the Provincial Thinking Symposium. That's what we were told, right? Not my straight A sister. Me.
But you were, yes, that would definitely be a red flag to me as well. I would be like, what's going on here?
My mom thought she was doing what was best. Of that day, other than a little bit of stuff that's been brought out in hypnosis, I remember the bus ride there, their bus ride back, and being seated in an auditorium with bright multicolored lights. That's an 8-hour day.
That's very strange. Like it seems as if, you know, because the one thing I'm going to say about this is a lot of truly intelligent people, like people who are truly intelligent, not what we would be considered, you know, like good at memorizing information, but people who are actual like critical thinkers and truly intelligent, they do not do well in the public school system. They do not, because the public school system is not to make people thinkers and intelligent. It is to make you smart enough to run the machines and dumb enough to not ask questions. That's exactly what it is. So the fact that I think what they potentially saw in you was somebody who is very mechanically inclined and understood mechanical aspects at a very young age, and that's just something you don't see very often.
Absolutely. And I just a footnote to that. I did the geography on this. That was held at a Christian youth camp, 8 minutes from a military base.
Yeah, that those two right there, those, that's not a coincidence, at least in my eyes, because you know we've been seeing how a lot of these Masonic programs and a lot of these intelligence programs use Christianity as their plausible deniability disguise. And but no, that so you had a very interesting, it sounds like almost you were at a complex of some kind, like almost it's yeah, I've even joked and like theorized that, you know, they could potentially take a complex and disguise it as a school as well and make it seem, you know, kind of have these intricate classrooms and this curriculum and things like that. So the one thing, if you guys don't mind diving into it, what was the thing we were talking about, the experience you had with the government out there in Canada, the Child Protective Services?
Oh my goodness, Stephen.
That one I think needs to be brought to light, because of what you told me had my jaw almost hanging on the ground, and I found it to be completely unacceptable.
Start with the backstory.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll go back to the backstory. So my ex was not kind. We'll say textbook narcissist, and right from the beginning, my son was 2 months old, and we'd had an argument, and I was going to leave. I just wanted to go to his mom's because my parents lived an hour and a half away, and I just wanted to get away from him. He called the police on me. And automatically, when there is a domestic dispute, child protection, it's called Children's Aid Society here, or CAS, is automatically involved, whether the child's in danger or not. So right off the bat, I was a mother for 2 months, and my name was on a list. So they keep a list of people that have had calls against them, and your name's on there permanently. So even if I went back to Ontario, and if I wanted to adopt a child or whatever, they would see me on that list just because I wanted to leave. And so they closed that, and then I ended up leaving my ex. I won't get into the whole story with that, but right now, but it saw my son and I going to a shelter. So then child protection was involved there as well. Now that experience was a little better. The nurse, I told her everything, and I'm like, I know this probably sounds like I'm making it up, and she's like, no, you couldn't make this stuff up, like what my ex had put me through. And so fast forward, I ended up I did go to the courts because I was terrified. Oh, if I had to do this over again, I would do things so differently. But I went to get paperwork because I was afraid that if my ex got his hands on him, then he wouldn't return him, and there would be no recourse. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go file these papers so that he can't get them away from me. And my God, Stephen, it was just, it was horrible. Like just horrible. He called CAS on me over every little thing. And would take me to court over every little thing. Like my life was a living hell. I couldn't hold down a full-time job because I never knew when he was going to call me into, like when I was going to be called into court. And this system allows it. They allow it to stay open-ended. And so if you want to get right down to it, he continued his abuse by proxy through the court systems and through child protection. And not only did he do it, his mother did it and his sister did it. I swear to God, they had them on speed dial. And there was not one investigation that was ever founded. But they would investigate me, put me under the fucking microscope. But then when my son would go stay with my ex in a house, like that's one of the reasons I left him, because the house was not fit. It should have been condemned. They wouldn't send child protection. Child protection only stepped foot in his house once, ever. Once. And he was there at one point 2 out of 3 weekends. And he would be there for 2 weeks in the summertime, but child protection would not do a fucking thing. It was all me, and there was nothing founded against me. And even when there were reports against him, it was always me that was investigated. And
that's really strange.
Oh,
this is really, really strange.
She kind of left out that he's ex-military.
That is something. So this is an interesting correlation we're starting to see here, because even though we can't prove it, I do potentially think that had something to do with it.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this just went on, and that doesn't even include like the horrible stuff that happened to my son at his school. So then we'll fast forward to 2020, and there was an incident again, and they were involved again. And so we agreed. So at this point, Don was in the picture. And so we agreed to do therapy just to get them off of our asses. Like, we were all fine. And my son's sitting here. So everybody was good. There was absolutely no reason at all for there to be any involvement. And fortunately, though, the worker that we had, she saw it, and she finally released us. I don't know if they if there was a contract, if there was a part where they had nothing more and there was some behind the scenes shit, because they really did not have anything. And if there's ever an opportunity for a lawsuit, you bet your ass I'm on it. So anyway, we decided we agreed to do this therapy, and it was do I say the name?
Yeah, it was through Point in Time.
And that's in Haliburton County, in Haliburton, Ontario. And it was this, and it's Point in Time Children's Services. And so we ended up with this counselor, even like to the point I said something out of frustration, and she threatened to call child protection. And then she set us up with this program that was, was supposed to enrich the relationship between parents and children. And so they got us doing some weird stuff. It was kind of questionable, but the really weird part was the part where they wanted us to eat food off of our son's arm. It's not even like shoulder and feeding each other. My son was 13, 12.
He was 12
at the time.
What the fuck? Like, I've never
ask him.
like what like I can't understand how this process or something like that. It almost seems like they were in some ways trolling you, or like kind of like fucking with you a little bit, it seems like.
No, they were going for fucking entrapment on a satanic level. Okay, these are recorded Zoom meetings. Now, if you have fucked up situations where I'm this kid's non-biological father eating food off of him
And take it out.
and take it out of context and post pictures of this shit of me eating food off of a kid on the internet, and now say my podcast pops and all of a sudden there's a picture of me eating food off of a fucking kid. How does that look?
It doesn't look good on you, man. And I think what they were trying to do, this sounds like they were trying to blackmail you.
Yep.
Is exactly what this sounds like, because they were using their position of authority, just like a lot of these individuals do who are involved in this, and that's their plausible deniability. I'm in this position of authority, I mean, I was talking about it with somebody else, like, that's why a lot of these Freemasons and these satanic people, they end up in churches, because like, that's their plausible deniability. It's like you try to go and say that the priest is a Satanist or a Freemason, everybody's going to look at you like something's wrong with you. Like, what are you talking about? That's the priest. How could you say that? Same thing for like these CPS workers, because if you're looking at it from the point of the consensual narrative, what we call normies feel about CPS. They think they're this righteous, great thing, and they're out there to help protect the children and things like that. So so what was your reaction? What was your first initial reaction when they tried to get you to do this? Yeah, hell the fuck no. I would say this.
Yeah.
We ended it right there. Like we said, we're not comfortable with doing this. We'll talk to the CAS worker and get this sorted out.
Yeah, like it was an immediate pump the brakes. This is done.
We're done.
You just crossed a line.
I pumped them.
Yeah, like you want me to bearskin food off of a child? No, I'm out. Okay.
Yeah, that just.
Here's a crazy part. I had been in another relationship previously, and Children's Aid, because they do target a certain income bracket in Ontario as well. I'm going to call that out.
Yeah, and it's Kawartha Halliburton Children's Aid Society that we were dealing with.
Yeah, but if you go to Owen Sound and Grey Bruce, where I was previously in this other relationship, the person who was involved was the mother, because she was not kind to those children. So I had volunteered for it's called the My Dad's group. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. Well, I accelerated at it and actually became very helpful in the group, to the extent that Children's Aid hired me to volunteer instruct the next session. They paid for my cabs, they paid for my food, and they paid me $15 a session. So my parenting was never in question in any scenario. It was literally just a game being run on her, because they had her number from Jump Street when he was born. They had her locked in.
It sounds like potentially that they were trying to gaslight Spinja, because we talked about how your ex is ex-military, and we see this commonality in a lot of these stories. They were ex-military or affiliated with the military of some kind, and just the blatant disrespect. Because I'll tell you what, man, like at least if we're talking about the CPS system here in the States, they heavily favor the mother, heavily, and I think that would. Yeah, it's kind of a shock for me on that. So, I mean,
not this case. Like there was he kept on taking me to court, and fun fact, he hasn't paid a cent in child support in 16 years either. There was nothing, and I had to do the transportation. Like I had to drive him an hour. And there was no and it was one way, and there was no compensation or anything like that. And of course I just got zapped.
No child support.
Yeah, no, there was something else. Oh, I lost it. Oh,
it's okay. Yeah.
No, it was to do with the court system. Oh, and about heavily favoring the mothers. I almost feel and that has traditionally been here in Canada as well. And it's to the good dads, it's still happening. I see it. Like, and it's funny because when I went to the shelter, they even tried to get me onto the man hating. And honestly, if anybody should be man hating, absolutely, with my experiences and stuff. But no, they even tried to fan the flames of that. And so I feel like they made an example of me. Like, basically, see, we're not favoring the mother. We're not favoring the mother here. Like, it was the exact opposite. And I don't have a criminal record. I think I've had 2 speeding tickets ever. Like, they have nothing on me. This was a fight that should never have happened.
That to me, it's the situation just has red flags all over it.
My son took his first steps in a homeless shelter, or in a women's shelter, and none of that mattered through this court process. I was told just because he abused me didn't mean that he was going to abuse my child.
That's so crazy, man. I just it's a red flag to me, because just like you were saying, the ex-military, the constant harassment, it almost seems like the gaslighting and everything else, man. It sounds like a recipe that they were definitely trying to set you up for something. And this is just, hearing your story about this is another puzzle piece. Like, you know what I mean? It's another puzzle piece to the situation, because we see this behavior, and we see a lot of this behavior manifest itself in these institutions. It's always that, and especially, yes, I 100% believe that you guys were being set up at blackmail, and to somehow maybe potentially smear you down the line, man. Well, the one thing I'm going to say is I'm happy you two made it out of that, and you guys are here with me today. So hopping on, what were you gonna say, Don? My bad.
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah. So hopping on to the next thing. So Don, I want you to explain to everybody your theory on this existence, because when you sent it to me on Facebook Messenger the other day, I'm reading everything you said about the DNA coding sequences, on how this is almost like a type of coding system to code the divine energy within us to make us consciousness, man. And it just resonated on so many deep levels, because we see a lot of people starting to, in fact, ever since you said it, I've been seeing more stuff about it. So let's it's almost like you set off that chain reaction. So let's talk about this for a second, because I find this very interesting.
Well, it actually kind of, it was absolutely inspired by Karen Holton, because she wanted to do a series with you as well on the simulation theory. And I was like, okay, but I want to know if this is a matrix reality, not so much a simulation, because simulation is too controlled, but the essential idea that this might be something other than the universe that we know it as. So what this led me down to was, again, I tend to get things through gnosis since my awakening and all of my NDEs, and especially if I'm like meditating before bed, I was like, okay, I really want to know, like, is this really a matrix? And I woke up and I knew where to look for everything. I knew where to find everything, and I knew the theory that I wanted to put together. Okay, the whole thing with a matrix is, if you have a matrix the size of the universe that this is all created, then you need something to make that. You need a simulator. I'm going to use the word. I hate it, but there's no other word. You need a simulator. But what if you didn't need the simulator as big as the universe? What if you had an infinite plane populated entirely by sentient molecules? Well, then if you put into play the double slit experiment, and for those who don't know, I'll try to simplify it. It basically says that ions react in a different way when they're watched and when they're not watched. Well, if you had a higher stage of consciousness observing this flat plane of sentient ions, then they would start to behave in a manner. They would start to construct a universe around themselves. And then you could further send stages of this consciousness into the sentient beings. That actually gets to you talking about my body being able to control itself. Yes, because I'm made of sentient ions too. So are you. So is that. Also is everything in this universe. everything behaves and vibrates at the frequency it's supposed to, even if we have to assist it in its construction. Okay. But the fundamental thing is what's actually running this sentient ion vessel that I'm inhabiting and she's inhabiting and you're inhabiting is a higher stage of consciousness that we receive through our pineal gland and frequency. And we can create our existence in real time because we are the biological frequency projectors observing the ions. Now, where we get into the DNA sequencing is that since the 1950s, it's been researched, can you store physical data on DNA? Well, it turns out, yes, you can. And the most recent count of what the average human body would be able to store is 13.5 billion years of data. Why
That's
that
a
is
lot of data.
why that is relevant is because that is the approximate age of the universe. So that means all of the information of the universe is potentially stored within all of us. So of course we can project reality and create it in real time because we already know it. It's stored in every cell you have. Every memory. I have it, you have it, he has it, she has it, we all have it. We just have to get enough people to realize that if we change the frequency vibration and project the proper reality into the ions that we are participating with, it'll change.
Dude, and I'm telling you what, I got goosebumps after that because that to me, you know, that's the point I've been hitting home all the time. And you know, it's like we have everything within us. We have everything that was, is, or ever will be exists within us, man. And it's like it's completely like it just made me have goosebumps because I was like, oh my goodness, man, I'm hearing like this version. And your version is magnificent. And, you know, and almost I'm going to kind of like segue into this, you know, so do you feel that potentially that, you know, there is some kind of blueprint for humanity that kind of came from that higher source? Because, you know, if we look at a lot of the different religions and we look at a lot of the different spiritualities, deep within, it seems to be this blueprint for like some kind of human code. I mean, do you think that this is potentially the beginning processes, a lot of these religions and spiritualities, of figuring out what you just said? Because I think so. I think that this could potentially be the case.
I think that's very valid. And one of the things that I've mentioned to you before is the reason I even got to the point where I can separate myself from my body in a fundamental sense is the 5 sheets, which is the Hindi prophecy. And I'll strip it right down. It basically means that we're the voice in our own heads that ask the questions. Well, where that's coming from is a higher stage of consciousness, right? Now, is it Christ consciousness? Is it Allah? Is it whoever? We do all come from a basic idea of what we're supposed to be here, right? And I don't know, I know you had something too.
No, just when you
let's hear it, Spinja.
No, when you said about blueprint, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
If you want to, you're better at this. This is more your wheelhouse. I mean, I just woke you up. Yeah, I just do the researching. He's the smart one. I'm the archivist and the researcher.
Well, that's a hell of a team. That's a hell of a team. I dig that.
Well, yeah, and I think this does come from like whatever you want to call whatever has created this universe on a basic sense, because it's all coming and being created from the same lights. The Alchemist, when she was on Rob's show, called it light source consciousness. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's light source consciousness observing the ions on that infinite plane that is creating this reality. So I interpreted it this way. They interpreted it that way. Everybody has their own version of the story, but it comes from a basic truth. That means we come from a basic principle. Okay. Now, I think over the years, being creator beings, and we've been dialed way back right now. Okay. But we used to create some crazy shit like giants and aliens. Okay. We started here as the basic existence and then created our reality outward. Okay, so
Hmm.
somebody one day looked at a star and went, I wonder if there's anything that lives out there. Well, then whatever that person started to imagine was created with those sentient ions, because that person was projecting their idea out into the raw universe. Same as the giants, same. It actually all comes back from the light source consciousness that the alchemist was talking about, like visualize and basically interpreting this plane.
That to me, because I've always heard the saying that we humans and the divine, we are co-creating each other, almost in some sense of the word. And I do agree with you. I do believe that our we've forgotten it, and that's why I call it the forgetting. Now I've borrowed that little bit of I borrowed that out of a page of the Secret Book of John from the Gnostic creation story. I think it really sums up what we're going through. Now, one thing you brought up on the show yesterday, man, you said that they are aware that we can alter, the CIA and a lot of these intelligence agencies are aware that we can alter, the human collective can alter this reality and change it away from the desired result that they are looking for. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Well, yeah, that actually goes into a principle that she started with this whole manifestation thing, and we do affect our reality. And what from 2020 on was, for a little bit, was a really sick experiment that they portrayed or propagated on humanity, and on a global scale for once. Like, bravo, you got everybody to play, right? But they know that we are manifesting beings, and like Spin has explained to me. Yeah, go.
Let's hear it,
No,
Spinja.
so yeah, like I think like what I'm seeing is what they did. So many people in this world don't even know about the law of attraction. They don't know about the universal laws. And even with the law of attraction, and it's so funny because I'm still diving on that, and I'm diving into the universal laws and all that stuff. And like that's one of I think a lot of our pet peeves is that they talk about the law of attraction, but they don't talk about the rest of the universal laws. And so a lot of people have, like, it's just a little backstory here. A lot of people have been soured on it because, oh, it's just new age hooey because it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work because they've suppressed everything that you need to do, like all of the steps. And so it's basically you're either consciously creating or you're living by default. And because so many people don't know that you can consciously create, they're going for the default. And so that's the part where the parasites just jumped in and took advantage of that. So that's why they bombarded us with all the propaganda on TV, like, and all these like slogans and all this stuff. They just took advantage of this. That's why they're pushing their climate agenda. That's why, like all of this and the weather catastrophes. Like, even like Don and I were just talking about this. So we were we don't have cable or satellite or anything like you, and so we don't see mainstream TV that often. And
you're better off that way. You're better off that way. Trust.
So we were out a couple of weeks ago, and there was a TV on, and they were showing weather forecasts, and so they were, and the temperatures were normal, if not a little on the cooler side, but they were talking like I think like 19 to 21 degrees, which I think translates into something like 60, maybe around 65.
52, yeah.
Yeah, 65, maybe 70. But on this weather map, they were using like red, like shades of red, orange, yellow to, and you know how that, like on normal weather maps, like maybe back in the day, that's heat wave shit right there. But these are seasonable, decent temperatures. But it's like, oh no, like we're going to use the panic, and so what they've been doing is putting all of this stuff out there because the people that are creating by default will just automatically suck it all in and therefore create the reality that they want.
100%. And one thing I was going to add there too. So as far as symbolism goes, the colors of red and orange, they're excitatory colors. They stimulate your external and your internal nervous system. So basically what they're doing when they put these average temperatures in these orange or red types of color frames, they know the effect that these colors have because it causes that excitation. They're like, if somebody who like you said, and I'm actually going to bring up two things. So one thing I love that you said, I don't like him anymore because he hopped on the COVID narrative. I lost a lot of respect for him, but Sadhguru said one really good thing. He said, you have two choices. You can either be a byproduct of creation or you can be a creator in creation. And that was like probably one of the most wisest things I've ever heard him said. And then I fell off immediately when COVID came around and he got on the mic and was like, you need to pay attention to the rules of your government and what they're saying. I was like, no, dude. I was like, no, dude, I had just this profound, phenomenal respect for you, and you just did this to me. And then the other thing I want to say, here's a little climate joke for you. So we'll get back to it because I think you two will find this funny. So I always find it ironic because they talk about how vegans and a lot of the climate activists just happen to be vegan, right? And they talk about how the greenhouse gases and the carbon dioxide are getting too much in the atmosphere. Well, what's funny is, plants intake carbon dioxide and they release oxygen, but the vegans only eat the plants. They don't eat the meat. So in a sense, it's like the biggest batch of irony to me that they're about eating the only source of turning that carbon dioxide into oxygen, and they think it's the cows. And I'm just like, but nonetheless, get back to it. I'm sorry. I thought you guys would find that funny.
Absolutely. Oh, well, yeah, like in Parliament up here, the answer to everything, like, well, they might call him Justin Trudeau. We call him Sock Boy because
Can I ask where that originated from? I have to know. I have to know.
He's very proud of his socks. He always has these fancy socks on. So yeah.
I think the word you're looking for is fucking flamboyant.
Oh, dude. So, wait, we have to say he's a very pleasant man. I'm just kidding. Shane, if you're watching, that's for you. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll work with you, bud. We're Ontario escapees. But yeah, Sock Boy's answer to everything is climate change. If you ever you could totally turn it into a drinking game. Like you take a shot every time he says climate change, you wouldn't make it through 15 minutes of Parliament.
You'd be slammed. You'd be slammed.
You remember the episode of The Simpsons where they screw everybody out of the dental plan but give them a cake of beer, and Homer starts hearing dental plan? That's him with climate change. Climate change. Like it's a fucking parrot. Sorry for swearing so much, but dude.
No, you're good, man. You're good. No, it is, man. It's funny. The whole client, it's the biggest thing. And one guy I kind of as much as I turned you on to him, Don, but Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers, as much as I think he's gone a little bit on the bipartisan route, which disappoints me a little bit, but he's a real smart guy. He's actually kind of come out and he's kind of shown a lot of this stuff and debunked a lot of these climate scientists too. I just think it's the biggest, because if you have any kind of common sense and you do any kind of research, like you will see. And the other one thing too, the whole, and this is the biggest batch of irony. I don't know if you guys know this. I wanted to tell you this because Spinja, if you got your notepad, like here's the time for it. I'll say so. It's funny because they're saying they're going with this meatless agenda right now. And they're trying to push this meatless agenda. And, they're talking about how factory farming increases greenhouse gases. But little does everybody know that these people who are stating that these factory farming is creating greenhouse gases and they're trying to get this meatless agenda, they were the very proprietors of these factory farming policies back in the early 60s. So the United States, I think Canada joined at the same time as the United States, but there's something called Codex Alimentarius. Look that up. And basically what Codex Alimentarius did, and it also they implemented amendments to it, is what set the standard and the foundation for food, quote unquote, food safety protocols and farming procedures that we use today in this world. But what's really funny is they set up this stage because what they did is they imposed fines and taxes on farmers who did not want to follow USDA guidelines as far as using pesticides, as far as using antibiotics, as far as using hormones and things like that. So basically, they are the reason they blew up the factory farming. And then now they're trying to use the fact that they blew up factory farming to get all of us to stop eating meat and becoming vegetarians and vegans and eating bugs and things. It was a stage that was set from long ago.
That is wild, and I don't doubt it at all.
I'm
I think
shocked.
no,
Dude, I'm telling you, man. Yeah, keep going.
no, it just kind of like melted my head. Like, oh my god, that is like, it just so lines up that I don't even have anything to say. Like, I'm stymied on that one.
That's a first.
They set the stage, man. They and this is how they've done it, and I'm sure you two have definitely started to see this. They set the stage for this shit like years in advance because they do it through a generational pattern because the generation, the boomers, excuse me, that were alive in the 60s when this all went down, they have no memory or recollection of that. So that's not something that they're going to pass down to the other generations. So that's how they get one over on the later generations when they implement this stuff, is they set the stage for it later. Oh, they've forgotten all about it. Let's start bringing it back into the picture and recoiling it, just like they're trying to do. And so like, yeah, and I mean, even when we look at what's going on today, the stage was set long ago. And so the one thing I want to ask the both of you real fast is, what are your thoughts on how far back this goes? And that's something I've entertained myself, and I would just love to hear you guys' opinion on that.
Well, for myself, I think it actually goes back thousands of years, because I think that's why we're not as productive creator beings as we're supposed to be, because it is my personal belief we were born with 10 senses and 5 of them have been muted. And those are your clairs, your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, your telepathy. All of those things have been stripped away from us. So the original programming for all of this goes back thousands of years. They have been manipulating the generations of our family, our bloodlines, and taking away our abilities. And now it's just our food. Right? It's been a thousands and thousands of year process of them decommissioning our ability to provide and create for ourselves. And it's damn near worked, because these idiots with the on their face that aren't even looking where they're going, they're going to be the first ones to jump in a fucking matrix pod. I'm sorry, but they are. That is the next stage of the program. They've got idiots walking around with robo-dogs with glasses that they can't see shit in front of them, and you know what comes next. We've seen the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it goes back thousands of years just to get to that point. Like, there's going to be a separation between the technocracy and people like us. There's going to be a division.
And let's build on that for a second. I've entertained that there's going to be some kind of a whether you call it a timeline split or a frequency split, and you're going to have people like us who decide to go our own way. We're going to be like, no, we don't want any of this anymore. If the people who do want it, you can stay here. We're done here. So I theorized that potentially would even be what the rapture could truly be as well, is this split in humanity, is split in timelines. You have the one path of people who are like us, who are, you know, trying to move on to new earth and this new way of being. And then you're going to have that other path who is fine with the totalitarian authoritarian agenda, completely okay with it. Put me in a matrix pot, freaking make my whole reality fake. As long as I have to sit here and just be in this apathy, that's fine. I mean, what do you two think about that statement? Do you think that is something that could potentially happen?
Oh, absolutely, seeing it, and they're totally lining us up for it. I mean, Edmonton to the north of us and Calgary to the south of us are both signed up to be 15-minute cities. They are totally that's. And one thing though, I got a glimmer of hope. So I was saying yesterday that I don't watch the news, and I don't really pay a whole lot of attention. And, you know, thank you, Sockboy, for banning the news from Facebook because we don't have to participate. But so I get my updates. I listen to Lindsay Sharman every week and her winning report. And so that's
Lindsay's
how
pretty cool.
Oh, she's awesome. And like I haven't interacted with her, but I love listening to her. And so I think it was last week she was saying about how Apple put their glasses things out, the Oculus or whatever, I don't know what they're called, but you know, the things on your face, right?
Yeah.
VR. And I guess it was an exorbitant price and nobody was buying it. And she's like, that's a win right there, because obviously nobody wants it. And so apparently they've had to go back to the drawing board like Wile E. Coyote and redo it for a cheaper price to see if maybe people will bite then. But I'm hoping that maybe there's like a tiny semblance of sanity left in the rest of this world, that people see these are not a good thing.
I actually have a quick 5-minute theory on the ascension or the awakening or whatever you want to call it too, with the division between people like us and people in the technocracy is, okay, you know, because you're a smart cat, right now we can only perceive certain things in our environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those things are probably vibrating at different frequencies than we are. So if you, me, and her change our vibrational frequency to a stage of almost euphoric happiness, and we just stop interacting with people choosing to live in the technocratic lifestyle, I think there's going to become a stage where we're both populating the same planet, but they can no longer perceive us, so we stop interacting with them. There will be a separation of the masses, but it'll just be on a vibrational frequency level, and you just won't be able to see each other. Well, we won't have to, and they won't be able to, because our frequency will be elevated to such a stage that they can no longer perceive us. It may even, I don't know, but
I think this is happening right now because I don't know if you two have experienced this or not. I joke that I have to yell at somebody to get them to know that I'm there. I've had instances where I've been standing in a room, somebody has walked in, they've looked directly at me, not realized I was there, and it wasn't till the point where I went up to them, I was like, hello, that they would go, oh, what's up, or something like that. It's like I had to dip into their frequency almost and be like, hi, I'm here. So I don't know if you two have had that happen either, because like I've been starting to see this happen kind of at like a accelerated rate.
It's funny that this is coming up now. So every morning, I working with the law of attraction, it's like, okay, I basically I want to be invisible to people that don't match my frequency. If you're vibing lower, I want to be invisible. And, you know, like if we have to interact and all that, that's fine. Keep it at a minimal. Otherwise, invisibility cloak. And I swear that works, because this morning I'm an industrial sewing machine operator. And so I was working on one of the other machines. It's in the middle of the room, and people were just walking right past me. Like they didn't even see me. It's like, sweet, it's working.
I love that, man. I'm gonna have to start trying. It sucks for me though, because of what I do. I have to interact with people. It'd be funny if I just knocked on someone's door for a service call and they opened up and they didn't see me, and I would just be like, "Whoops." And
Oh,
what were you say, Don? Yeah, go ahead.
something that she didn't get to mention yesterday that I think is relevant to this is her coworker. She goes into her work, which she loves.
Okay.
It's her jam. They provide cookie and coffee and like candies and all of this wonderful shit. It's like working for Charlie and Not Evil Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, right?
It's awesome. Like seriously, this place is surreal. Like
So it's the best place I've ever seen anybody work ever. But she has this Asian coworker who is in direct correlation with her with a lot of their projects and definitely in her auric field. Well, she gets vibrating so high and into flow state that her coworker has started going, "How did we do that so fast?" They're literally creating an energetic bubble and manipulating time where they're like quadrupling their production, which is an impossibility because they were already working at such an exponential rate. They're now like, this woman is like old school from China and a real deal sewing factory and commenting on how fast things are moving. And it's
That's
because
saying something. I'm gonna have to say that. That is definitely saying something.
it's
That
it's happened since I've been doing my law of attraction deep dive and just shifting and tweaking things, and it's probably been about the last month or so, and now, so we were working 10 hours up until last week, and I think the boss wants us to cut back a little bit. It's slower in the summertime, and then the crazy season is going to kick in, so she doesn't want us to wear ourselves out. And so since we've started working like, a normal 8-hour workday, it feels like we're not even there. Like it goes by. So the two of us, we both go in like again, most awesome workplace. We go in at 4:30 in the morning because we want to. Like we're both up. We're both like just ready to get her done, and so we're alone usually until about 7:30, and it's just the two of us. Just,
dude, that is like so. So I definitely think too. Flow states are they're magnificent, and I think definitely in this case it's a combination of things. I think yes, the shorter workday for sure, but I think what that has done to you, like consciously, is it's made you in some ways happier, right? Like so, like because like you're not at work for 10 hours at a time. You can get home to Don and the kid, a little bit earlier and spend time. So I think that it's the combination of the happiness of that and plus the perceived, and what has happened too is that puts you into the flow state. That kind of like put you into that. And it's interesting how that can randomly happen. And what it has done too is it's like now you're doing 10 hours of work in 8 hours. You know what I mean? Because like it's just it's very interesting.
I blew my mind today. Like what I did today in 8 hours. I would say it was double, maybe triple. I would say maybe triple what I did when I first started. And I'm like, even, well, the gauge that I'm using, and again, like my friend, her parents owned a sewing factory. For her to tell me that I'm getting faster and I'm fast, yes, I take that as like the utmost compliment, and I am where I need to be.
That is so awesome. Like we were talking about in the show yesterday too, when humans are in intense states of emotion, whether they be positive states of emotion or they be what we would say perceived negative states of emotion, that's when we're the closest to our true divine nature. You know what I mean? Like when we enter these emotional states, because you have to think that the emotion and the feeling is such an integral part of the temporary human experience that we're having here. I think it kind of truly sums it all up. So I think when we enter those emotional states, we tap into some shit that we don't even realize. Like, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's just fostering and cultivating that remembrance. Don, you looked like you were going to say something.
Well, yeah, it kind of takes you back to, you know, them knowing that we can create things in this reality, and what they were trying to get us to do since 2020 with that whole shit that they were running is exactly what you're saying. We can change reality. Okay, here's the sentient ions vibrating and creating the frequency. If they were that convinced that we can create the existence that they want because they can't, then that means we can do it too. They just proved it. They tipped their hand. They showed us what they were making us do. And I love the revelation that she came to, that that's what they were doing, because a light bulb went off and I was like, holy shit, she's right. And this is what they were doing. They just did the most massive scientific experiment on the entire planet. And we all did it for them for 2 years and created the world they wanted.
That
Now
is,
we
that
can
is,
create our own.
well, it's that too, you know, because like, just like we were saying, like, you know, the human, a lot of people like, you know, people like us, we saw what was going on. We were in the state of mesmerized terror. But you know, if you look at the greater human collective, yes, the greater human collective at that point in time was in a state of mesmerized terror. And you know, fear, love, opposite polarities, and you know, love's a powerful manifester, and so is fear. So like that's definitely what they were trying to do. I 100% agree with that. And I think, you know, and the one thing I feel, though, and I want to pick you guys' brain on this, is I feel it's going to be really hard for them to attempt to do something like that again. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, COVID has phenomenally since then woken a lot of people up.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know what I mean? It was like it almost had a backlash effect. So
Yeah.
let me hear your thoughts on that real fast.
No, I absolutely agree. And like, well, like I'm sure you've seen too, like the different attempts, like they try, like there's been different viruses that they've tried, like they tried with monkeypox. And also, like I noticed, like I do check the news every once in a while back in Ontario. And the so where I'm originally from is about 3 hours north of Toronto, and small town, very backwards. Anyway, um, but they're pushing like measles vaccinations now, and trying to, like, and this, I think I read this like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that they're trying to, like, they're absolutely pushing the measles vaccine. And then I've heard, you know, and while listening to Lindsay's report, you know, like they're really trying to push this bird flu thing. And it's like, we've already done that, guys. And the other piece is, I'm hoping that people are asking questions. It's like these new, like, viruses or whatever, you know, they're trying to push. Why are they new? How are they new? Where are they coming from? Even if they do exist, which there's been some that have, you know, there's no evidence that they even exist. Where are they coming from, and why are they popping up now?
That's a very good question. Don, what were you going to say?
I just always reference, when we go back to that stage of history here in Canada, I don't know how much you guys caught, because, you know, Sockboy banned the media and shit. They basically recreated the script of V for Vendetta here in Canada. Like, they were threatening to steal people's children for protesting out front of the Houses of Parliament. They sicked the fucking military on their own populace. They were seizing people's bank accounts. They had people in the streets in terror. It was a fucking movie here. Like, the dude literally put the military on his own people, unarmed civilians.
And he wouldn't talk to anybody.
That's me, man. To me, I can't. I can't understand, you know, when I mean to me, I'm even gonna say this. I don't know. I don't know if maybe we were blessed with more common sense than others. I don't know at that point. Maybe that could be the case. But even if I was not where I am today in my spiritual evolution, I would still see you know, this individual turning his military on his own population. And I would think there's something very severely wrong with that. And you know, actually, so I want to tell you guys, one of my listeners, and he's been on the show, the Lion. He says he prays for Canada often.
Oh, we need
So
it. Thank
He's
you.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that was it, and it's kind of funny because I remember, and it was back in 2019. At that point, now I'm gonna say Sockboy played a good game. He really did. Initially, it was awesome. He legalized weed. I'm pretty sure that's how he got in. But he talked a good talk. And so I'm going to own it that there was one point. Now I didn't vote for him because, it's bullshit. But anyway, but I drank the Kool-Aid. So I was kind of like Team Red for a little bit, And then I was sitting there and I was listening to the news one day and I'm like, wow, okay, even though I'm agreeing with this dude, this seems really, really biased. And after I figured that out, I was like, I can't unhear that. And so that was the red flag that just set everything off for me there. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta go do some more digging.
you know, I joke now that you call him Sock Boy, I have like this visual of him sitting in his desk in his office by himself. He's got his socks on his hands and he's like, do you love me? Do you love me? I'm so in love. I don't know who my dad is. It's something like that. Oh my goodness, dude. Well, the one thing I'll say this before we wind down, guys, is you guys really laid down a really awesome point. And that's why I've always called it the Truman Show analogy, but instead of being advertised products, we're being advertised narratives and trains of thought. And, whichever narrative or train of thought that we buy into becomes our subjective reality. And if enough of the collective buys into that, it manifests into the collective reality. And I think you guys hit the nail on the head with that, because you basically explained that step by step of, how they are doing this, man. And so, alrighty, guys, we're at the hour and a half mark. Don Spinja, tell everybody where they can find you. Now, if you guys are watching the Rumble or the YouTube video, in the description, I have Don's YouTube channel and his Facebook, and I have Spinja's YouTube channel and her Facebook. But if there's anywhere else we can find you guys, please let the listeners know.
I am also on X and Instagram. And if anybody wants to read that entire paper that I did, I am happy to freely give it out, because it was channeled information that came to me through Gnosis. It is not mine. I do not own it. And it is free to the rest of the world to understand and take with whatever way they want to.
I love it. I love it. Spinja, what about you?
So yeah, just as you mentioned, I'm on YouTube and Facebook, and I do have an Instagram that I have been neglecting, but I promise I will try to get better at.
Awesome, guys. Awesome. Well, if there's anything you would like to say to leave with our listeners / viewers tonight, let's hear it.
Well, I do want to point out one thing about the family at FKN that we have now become a part of. You love talking about the reality being like a record player. Have you ever put together that yourself and your partner, Chris and Jennifer, and me and Spinja are just on different tracks on the same record because we have the same run up to where we are right now in our lives?
I joke that you could be a parallel existence of mine because of how many things we have in common. I'm dead serious, dude. I'm dead serious. We think very much on the same wavelength, and that's something I enjoy, man.
Well, that's why I pointed his show out to you, because or pointed your show out to Don, because I was surfing FKN and that's how I found you, and I listened to a couple of episodes and I'm like, holy shit, yeah, this dude, I've got it. Don has to hear him. But As
ahead,
far
Jess,
as far as my message to the viewers and listeners, don't stop asking questions. If it doesn't feel right, keep digging.
Hell yeah. And I want to tell you both something. I'm proud of you too. Like I said in the beginning, you guys took like a massive step forward. And you are manifesting this outcome for yourselves. You guys are creating this amazing world for yourself. You guys have told me about the farm, how excited you guys are to be doing what you're doing right now and connecting with all of us. And look at where it got you. You're on FKN now. So I just want to tell you, I just want to tell you too, I'm really proud of you guys and thank you for what you're doing. And it's a huge step and it takes strength. It takes perseverance, and it's not for everybody, but you two are killing it. And I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I never pictured any of this. I mean, I'm just a Canadian woman sitting at a sewing machine trying to figure things out, and ran across some awesome people, and it was awesome because I was sitting there listening to Chris, and then I heard Karen Holton, and it's like I feel like I know these people. Like I listen to them, and I just feel like I know them, and it just has me questioning. Did I manifest that?
Well, you know what? I'm very happy personally myself, and I know Chris is as well, to have you guys be a part of FKN. Very, very happy, guys. Well, you two stick around for just a sec, everybody. Thank you for joining me again for another BG-Cast Wednesday Live podcast. I will be back next week on July 3rd with that episode, The Chester Incident. Yes, we will be having my old co-host. He's still technically my co-host. We just haven't done a show in a while. Joe will be coming on to recant a very strange incident that happened to him in Chester, Pennsylvania. I believe he got a glimpse behind the curtain that not a lot of us get to see. And he dealt with some very interesting gang stalking as well as some very, very high strangeness during the whole thing. So I will be back next week with my old friend Joe from Syrup Tap. Other than that, guys, you all have a wonderful night. I will catch you next week. Take care, everybody.